Well, welcome, Roger.
Hello, Kalin. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful, wonderful. Today, one of the things that's happened today is I was conversation with somebody, and I realized that ever since the launch has occurred for the COLCI, the two phases program of training coaches, the coach experience, and then subsequently developing like coaching skills,
Yes.
that this person that I was talking to, he's actually in the process of getting certified. But he told me that there's a wow factor. He says this is a very strong foundation that I mean, if I think along these lines, I am really able to approach many areas in life. And this is what he was sharing with me. And so while we are sort of internal people, we can praise our work, but somebody else tells us about these kinds of feedback. We're happy about it that somebody is able to handle it in a foundational way. But then the question comes is to, okay, the foundation is done, the person gets certified. What is the next level? Is there a ceiling, or is there something developed? Because the niche marketing right now, niche becomes rich, is what people say. There's a phrase out there. So so just your thoughts about this, Roger.
Yeah, the phrase "the niche makes you rich." I've heard that too, and and to some extent I agree. And I'll just mention a few things regarding what you were requesting, and that is that when we go to the idea of what comes after we become a coach, and of course, one of the most profound things that can happen after we become a coach is that we can be a coach. And the circle of life system is very powerful for that. And through that process, it's often true that coaches discover areas that they are particularly drawn to, or that they seem destined to work with. So, say for instance, one of our graduates who's the CEO of a hospital feels really powerfully drawn to supporting other CEOs in enhancing the time, effort, and energy that they put into play. Because people who are super aggressive and have high level jobs with high level salaries are almost always, when they go through the circle of life process, they almost always give themselves a low satisfaction on play. And as you know, we have colleagues who've had deep and rich experiences with very close relatives, children and parents and spouses who have passed away, and maybe before we would have thought was their time. And so the magnitude of grief around an untimely loss is huge. And so many coaches begin to tilt their clientele in the direction, or they collect people, they attract people who happen to have um, grief as an area that they could really grow through into a whole new person. And it happens with all of the 12 aspects of the circle of life, that every one of them is a niche or a niche. And those who are the shall we say, the gurus of how to make it big, insist that having a niche is important, and will having a niche will make you rich, as you as we all say and have been kind of chuckling about. But it's also a very powerful message. And as you know so well, one of the foundational components of the circle of life, and therefore is a foundational ideal of the Circle of Life Coach Institute, is the whole concept of self-care in the area of everything, in the area of nutrition, uh, stress mastery, exercise, relationships, finances, career, etc., self-esteem, spirituality. And so it's a natural process for once a person has targeted, shall we say, the area of self-esteem as an area that they want to, that they're aware that they could benefit from bringing some of their strengths to bear on that area that could use some nourishment. It's very likely that that person would then think, well, what are the parts of self-esteem? So in other words, what are the, if you want to make another circle, which you're a total advocate of, say, well, if a person focuses on the area of self-esteem, then there's a whole new circle that pops up. And it's
Mhm.
interesting, back to the CEO from the hospital, he said, well, I want to make a circle on play, or no, he was saying, I want to make a circle for career for hospital uh, CEOs. And so then I said, oh yeah, well, that's easy. Here's some of the things I've been thinking about over the years for what a circle would look like just on career. And then he comes back and says, oh, those aren't my ideas at all. And so part of what you said about ceiling is that as people develop their direction as a coach and then become an expert in that, Circle of Life Institute, Coaching Institute, COLCI, is front and center to support that individual in developing that into a special area of coaching, but also even into a special area of coach training.
Mhm.
And so, wow, I mean, that's a whole,
Yeah.
that's like a universe that is filled with potential. It's like a quantum Circle of Life quantum field. And so I am super excited about this. And you've been working with some of the people who are working on
Yeah.
their
Mm.
niches or their niches. So maybe you'd say a little more about this topic.
Well, it's fascinating. I'm a storyteller, and I want to tell a story to all these people who are listening. The couple of stories that I want to narrate, and the one story goes just like this. Okay, there was this carpenter who used to build, houses, wonderful, and he was a fantastic builder. And he was near retirement, and everything was happening and all that. And then the guy who was his boss, he said, well, you must build this last house before you retire. And he said, well, I don't have time. I'm tired. All this, I'm done. No, 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 you have to do it. So he did it. He was not very engaged into it. So he just had to finish it. So he finished it somehow, put something together. I mean, it was not the best of his own artwork. He put it all together. He put it together. And after it was finished, he reports to the boss, and the boss says, well, you've been a wonderful, wonderful, employee and everything else. And I meant to give this house to you as a gift, going a gift. And this guy realized, oh my God, I didn't know that this was being built for me. I would have used a better material, better technique, and a much better house if it was meant for me. Now, the reason why I'm telling the story is because this niche part is fine. People go through, okay, and again, the second story I want to say is because I'm a vascular surgeon. And I got to tell you, when we become specialized and super specialized, and it's wonderful to be specialized. There's no question about the niche and everything. But when you become a super specialty and you forget how to basic cutting and sewing, putting stitches, basic is a little bit different and altered. Now we have a problem. Now we're building up like the guy built his house, not quite properly without.
Hmm.
So in case of that CEO, which you told me, which is fascinating to me, he didn't recognize it because it was not the principles of the COL. When you follow the principles, solid principles of the COL, and then develop the subsection, like we call the subcircle that you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, when you develop it that way, it is sitting on a solid foundation.
Hmm.
It is sitting on a very solid principles that we have incorporated within the circle process. And when you have that, well, now you can build anything you want. You can, if the foundation is deep enough, strong enough, you can build Empire State Building. And that's basically the whole concept here. And so I'm excited about the fact that many of our COL coaches have taken up some subspecialty areas, but they're all following. I'm helping them develop that right now, and this can go out for anybody who's listening to this and wants to do it. There's one person who's working with play area that you said, that's great. Another one is working on transition, and it's a very powerful. And the third is on the spiritual aspect. Now, spiritual coaching and transition coaching and grief coaching independently, there are many programs. There are as many programs as you can out there. The problem with those programs that I found was that I got confused as I started looking at the material that they brought in, the material, the psychology that they brought in. It was so complex.
Hmm.
And, and the coaching part was lost. There was a lot more material. And the whole idea about the person getting, stronger and empowered to find his or her own answers, that was lost in all that because there's so much of detailed stuff. And executive coaching, the same thing. I attend WBC, and I tell you, it's tough to follow because it's very complex. So we have a simplified process that works every single time in any of the detail area that we want to go to. And that's why I'm very excited about this. And this is just my answer to what you were saying.
Yeah, well, I
And
have
then,
another question, and that
yeah,
is, are you saying, I know you are, but I want you to say it again in specific terms. Are you saying that you are working with graduates of the Circle of Life coach training to support them in developing their own niche coaching, and even in some cases, a special subspecialty of coaching targeted at a particular thing like grief or play or transition? Does that mean that the Circle of Life Coach Institute has you as a sort of department head for developing these kinds of special programs?
absolutely. When I looked at these areas, these coaches, they are all circular like coaches. But what is happening is when they get extra material, detailed material, the way that we develop it from top to bottom, like we have the inverted triangle, and how the intuition and all that gets into the action steps and everything else, those kinds of principles, and also having the personal central personal care practices, self-care practices, that basic evaluation has to be done first. If you run with the subspecialty and directly have all these applications, you're losing the person in the person's life, and you're just directing. It's like in surgery. This is very common, in fact. You know, you say, well, the person has appendicitis, and so he goes to the appendicitis doctor, and then his subspecialty has become like that.
Yeah.
Appendicitis doctor, and then the guy turns out to have something else. And so, definition of subspecial, the specialist I have. This is in surgery, but it happening in coaching too. Looks like a specialist is somebody who knows more and more and more about less and less and less until he knows everything about nothing. So I don't make
Well,
fun of it, but I think that that's what the reality is right now.
and you're pointing to the whole idea of building on a solid foundation, which I
Right.
think is very
And
powerful.
I'm helping. The answer, your short answer is yes, I'm helping anybody who's interested.
That's
Yeah.
so exciting. So, as we're wrapping up today, I just want to point to the fact that not only are we training coaches, but we are actually opening doors for the coaches who are inclined to do so, to actually refine their own special areas that they find compelling, maybe because they've had lots of clients in that direction, or maybe because it's something that they feel very deeply as a personal mission. And that is so exciting. Like when I'm imagining, if I'm, shall we say, enrolling in a coach training, I could usually just think, well, I'm enrolling in a great coach training. But in this case, what we're saying, I think, is that you're enrolling in a great coach training that actually has, well, you said it yourself, no ceiling. It just goes as far as you want to go.
Right, right. And to me, because I'm a complex guy, I did vascular surgery. I dealt with complexity all my life. I found one thing, and I want to leave that last thought process with everybody, is that when you get hold of the simplistic process, simple step by step process, that's all it needs to do. So then afterwards, the developing it is really much easier than people think. Getting into subspecialty or niche is much easier once we follow that.
That is just fantastic. I'm so glad we had this discussion today, and look forward to let's do it again sometime soon.
Sure, Roger. Thank you very much.